Board. All right. Well, it's a fun first top agent forum for the Illinois chapter of Young Professionals. We had a link issue, so if anybody wants to find that, it is on Workplace in the Illinois page and on the Young Professionals page. But if you were missing this, don't worry, you can join the Young Professionals page of Illinois, and we are doing a live stream. So to introduce everybody, my name's Ian Nelson. I am a agent of 5 years. I've been with the EXP brokerage for 2 years now, about to start my third in February. And I have Sohail Salahuddin here with me, who is an icon agent and a top producer from the city of Chicago. We are going to be getting into a topic discussing creating business in quarter 4. Sohail is one of the most disciplined agents that I have ever come across, and he is got a wealth of knowledge that he can provide to all of us here today. So when we jump into this topic, let's just hear a little bit about Sohail and his background, and then I will start off some questions for him. So Sohail.
Thank you, Ian, for that. Thank you for that awesome introduction. Super excited to meet everybody and hopefully provide some insight onto what it took me to get where I'm at and what you agents should do, whether you're newer or older, to increase your business, your production, and get yourself back on track to dominate this marketplace. So I've been doing real estate now since 2005. I started off in the mortgage side of the industry and transitioned into a little bit of development and condo conversion. And when the market crashed in 2007, 2008, I actually had my real estate license. But I was using that mostly for the clientele that would come through our mortgage company to get pre-approved and didn't have an agent as of yet. And then we would help them. And as an example, for one of the big condo conversions that we did, I want to say we sold about 200 to 300 units in one development in 2006, 2007. And it was good times because we were the listing agent, we were the buyer's agent, we did the mortgages for most people who needed mortgages, and we also got some of the profit from the equity of the sale on each individual condo. So I know people say double ending it. And then if you're a mortgage broker and maybe you list a property and find the buyer and provide the mortgage, or triple ending it, when we were quadruple ending every sale, partner and myself. So it was good times. And as the market decreased, what happened was I noticed on the mortgage side that people were, Lending Tree, if you ever heard of Lending Tree, that was one example where people who wanted a mortgage would give their information, and then the banks would bid on with basically giving the best rate, et cetera. And at the time I was negotiating 1%, and it was tough to even get 1% because so many lenders were fighting for business. And when I looked at the purchase contract, I noticed that every realtor was guaranteed, I would say 2.5%. And I realized I was on the wrong side of the industry. So what I did was I flipped my attention to more so to real estate. And I have a long history. I don't want to bore everybody, but everything from having my own real estate brokerage, which was very successful at the time, market shifted, shut that down, joined Jameson Sotheby's with a group of people from my company, went to At Properties, was there for about 10 years. And then beginning of 2023, transitioned to EXP, where I'm at now. And I got to meet Ian and many other people. So for me, it was an incredible and still super successful, very happy transition.
Nice. Yeah, that is a lot of the reason why I came from At Properties as well, as the collaboration that we have here with EXP and all of the great agents and the access to such top level agents that we have in this brokerage. My aunt is a big mentor of mine, and she's the one that had been pulling for me to do it ever since I got my license. But As you come to find out in this brokerage, we have access to so much more than what you typically run into in like a traditional brokerage. And we got EXP coming up, EXP Con coming up next week, which I'm assuming you'll be going to. And everybody should try to get to that if you can afford to and if you have it available. But let's get right into these questions. I have them right here. So, creating business in quarter 4. What is your ritual? How do you set yourself up for a successful day of prospecting?
So that's a great question. I find that to be highly important for me, is waking up early and setting myself up mentally, physically, and spiritually for the day. My real estate business is probably different from a lot of people that are watching this, in the sense that I'm very intentional. And so from the time I wake up to the time I start prospecting, role play, prospect, all that good stuff, that's what everybody should be doing, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what other people tell you. If you don't have a big business and you want one, it's the only way to get there. I hate to say it, because I know a lot of people are hesitant and resist forms of prospecting. But look, at the end of the day, even if you were to buy leads, you still have to call them. And so just getting back to my morning routine, I get up relatively early. I was waking up at 2:45. As of 2 weeks ago, I slightly adjusted my schedules. So now I'm getting up at 4.
4 a.m.
And at 4 o'clock, I wake up, 4 a.m. Yeah, which is, it feels a little good. Again, 2:45 to 4, believe it or not, the hour and 15 minutes difference does a lot for me as far as recovery, because I have pretty intense days. And I wake up, I do a little bit of cardio in the morning to get my body going, 20 to 30 minutes. I stretch. I go on my inversion table, which stretches out my back. And then I jump in, I have a cold plunge. And so I jump in a cold plunge for 5 minutes, which is amazing. If you've ever done it early in the morning, jump in at 40 to 50 degrees, really. In the morning, it really wakes you up and shocks your body, but you feel amazing as you get out of it.
It's the first thing I do in the morning too.
It's the best. It's the best. Yeah. So I bought a cold plunge, highly recommend it. It's great for your health, for your immunity, so many different things, so many benefits. But then I do a gratitude list. I prep myself for the day. I read for about 20 to 30 minutes. I speed read, so I get through a few chapters every morning. And then I do a little bit of solitude scribing, getting my thoughts onto paper, out of my head. And then I prep my day with looking over my schedule, see what the priorities are. And frankly, most of my priorities are going after new business. That's the highest and best use of my time, and frankly, everybody's time. And then at 7:15, I'm on a Zoom with a bunch of other agents role playing. And we do that for about 15 to 30 minutes. Most likely it's 30. And at 7:45, I'm on the phones.
Wow. I mean, that's great. Could you elaborate a little bit more about like that gratitude process and your solitude ideas?
Yeah.
Because I do have those also into my ritual, but it's always great to get other perspectives on it because as I do it, I just find 3 things to be grateful for the day. And then I have a list of goals. Some of them are long-term goals. Some of them are like quickly attainable goals. And then after I make out, 10 to 12 of those goals, any of those get crossed off, I incorporate a new goal and try to have short-term and long-term. But I'm curious to hear how you go about your gratitudes and goals and solitudes.
Yeah. So that's just an example of my gratitude list. It pretty much looks the same every morning. And what's interesting, when I write it, I tend to be writing the same things because I'm grateful for the same things every day. I do something a little different though. So if you ever heard of the wheel of life or the circle of life, I try to focus on being gratitude for each area. So I start with my family. So I'm grateful for my family. Then I go to spiritually, God and whatnot. Then I go into my mindset. So mentally, my about my business, what I'm grateful for my business, my team members, the clients I get to serve, etc. And then I go into personal, and then I go into contribution. Great. What have I done for others that I'm grateful for? The opportunities to contribute back.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. And then my scribing, I try to scribe 3 times a day. It usually takes me less than 5 minutes. It's just getting ideas, things that are in my head onto paper, because sooner or later throughout the day, they're going to be gone. I'm going to forget about them. Midday, I take a little break and try to do the same thing. Also, a little bit of self-reflecting on my prospecting hours to see what objections I couldn't handle, where I went wrong, etc. Again, very intentional about becoming better and making sure I don't make the same mistakes twice. And then I scribe a little bit at night before I go to bed. Same idea. I want to get my thoughts out of my head onto paper so I don't forget them, and I don't want things coming in and then leaving. That's what happens throughout our life, right? All the ideas that we have. And then in the morning, I pull that out and I look at what I've scribed for the previous day to freshen up the thoughts that I have, and then I repeat it.
Okay. Can you give like 1 or 2 examples of like what one of those random thoughts could be that you scribe?
Yeah, so I'll pull it up. It's kind of funny, so don't, you may laugh at this. I'm talking to myself. So let me just pull one up here. Okay. Here's just a couple. This is from 10/9. I said, confidence is everything. I need to become a master online marketer. Learning and reading equals wisdom. Make sure to read one book per week, only one, summarize it to myself. Focus on promoting. Your personal brand is everything. Study and practice all the time. Stay steadfast in prayer. Don't break form. Have no fear, worry, or doubt.
Nice.
Yeah.
And that's commitment too. And it takes a little bit to bring these things into practice, but it's always good to just start. You don't have to hit it every single day when you're first starting out. It's just building that consistency over time. And I find the more that you do that, the more clarity you get in the direction you want to take your business, the more room you leave in your mind for energy, for focus when you're doing prospecting efforts, working with clients, follow-ups, all of those sorts of things. So next question would be, when we're nearing the end of peak season, end of summer, what do you do in preparation to get your business revved up for Q4?
That's a great question. And I'm going to use an analogy just so everybody can resonate a little bit more with what I'm about to say. I look at my business almost like a store. And in my store, as people are coming in, there's someone that needs to greet them. We have to keep the shelves stocked with inventory, and there's someone to help them in the aisles with whatever they're looking for. Someone needs to process whatever they're buying, and then someone needs to see them as they're leaving and ensure that they come back again. And if they know anybody else, send them through as well. And so around this time of the year, as we get into fall, I have 2 objections. Number one is to move any inventory that I have before the end of the year. The second objection I have is to bring in as much inventory as I can, so my shelves are stocked for the spring market. So again, very intentional. And if you think about it like that, if you think about it like a store, Chicagoland there's a lot of cycles and shifts. We have 4 seasons, and then we have a school year shift. So every time a shift occurs, things change a little bit. The buyers who are focused on school year around July 15th, they tend to fall to the wayside. Same with people who are selling. And so that's an example of a shift. And then you have the fall to spring shift. That's when everybody's starting to get their properties on the market for spring, et cetera. We have the summer to fall shift. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the Chicagoland market, summer is very slow here. We call it the dog days of summer. And I think that's around many areas, especially in the Midwest. The two good times to sell are spring and fall. Winter is also relatively good. There's just not that many working days in December with the holidays and things like that. And then it's the beginning of the year. So you have to think each time there's a shift, or depending the time of the year, where is the real estate market at in conjunction with your business? Because as an example, in summer, I'm not going to go crazy thinking that we're going to have all this inventory and do a ton of open houses and things like that, because I know there's just not that much activity. So for us, summer is a little bit of time to kind of plan, reset, refocus, digress, etc., and then get back into full force as the fall market is upon us. Now, this year is a little bit different because it's an election year, and it's relatively unpredictable, like every election year is. But I still move forward just as if everything's normal, regardless of what's going on around me, because your habits and your focus are what's going to dictate how your business runs for the most part.
Okay, nice. And then, is there a particular style of prospecting that you feel is the right choice? And what sources are you using with the highest ROI during this time of year?
Great question. So, you know, we can interchange prospecting with lead generation. I mean, there's so many ways to call it. I think prospecting sometimes has a negative stigma to it, but the bottom line is that you have to talk to people about buying or selling real estate. That's the job that we have. And it doesn't matter if you're reaching out to people on social media and DMing them, or if you're talking to people. And I'll give you an example of what I would do if I'm going to, let's just say, a Starbucks, talking to the barista. But if you're anybody that comes in front of you, any decision-making adult is going to be a viable potential client. Okay. If they can buy a property, if they're looking to sell a property, and if they can make a decision for themselves as an adult, then they're a lead, or, they're potential lead, I should say. But getting to the very specifics of what I do, in the morning, I do have a ritual. My ritual is who I'm calling. There's a hierarchy of who I'm reaching out to first. So it starts with the new, canceled, and expired listings that just come off the market. And then I go to the for sale by owner. So why are those the two prominent sources? Well, because they're the lowest hanging fruit. Canceled, expired listings are people that are saying, I want to sell. For some reason, it was unsuccessful, and now I just come off the market. So they're looking for someone. If they're probably, there's a good chance that they're willing to change agents, or they're looking to change agents because the first agent didn't get it done. And so my intention is to go in, talk to them, find out what went wrong, take a look at what necessary adjustments need to be made so that they can have their property sold. For sale by owners, they're basically waving their hands in the air saying, hey, look at me, I'm for sale. Any buyer, agents, bring your clients, buyers, come look at my house, right? They just, I'm not at the point yet that they're willing to pay a commission, or they're not aware of what needs to be done and how to properly manage the sale and the listing. And then from there, I go to my past clients, lead follow-up. I go to just listed, just sold calls. And for the most part, that's where I spend most of my time prospecting. By the time I get done, I'm already in 4 to 6 hours every day.
Wow. That's commitment for sure.
Yeah.
What methods are you implementing on social media currently, and what impact have you seen from them?
So for Instagram, it's a little bit about our team, about the properties that we have listed, about our sales, maybe a few personal things, because at the end of the day, people do want to see what you have going on in your life. And they go to social media nowadays to find out who you are and what you're about. If you have integrity, if you're honest, and maybe you do an interview, a listing appointment, right? And then you leave and they're like, let's find out more about this person. So they're going to do some research, maybe prior to, but your social media should be a good example of who you are, the work that you provide, the service that you provide, who you work with, what sales you've done. It should be professional with a little bit of background on who you are. Maybe you have a family, maybe a hobby that you're into. Essentially, if you want me to get very specific, you have to find out who your avatar is. And that's basically, so The reason you have to find out who your avatar is because the people that are going to go onto your social media and pay attention to you are the same people that are into the same things that you're into. It's not necessarily someone that's just looking to buy a house. It's someone who's going to resonate with you. Like, for example, we all go on social media and we all have the handles that we look at, right? Maybe someone likes cars, so they're looking at someone who posts a lot of images of cars. Maybe someone looks at people working out. Maybe someone looks at someone with kids. There's so many different things, but depending on who you're trying to attract, that's going to be your avatar. And that's who you should be marketing to.
Got it. And a great help for figuring out those avatars is using AI, Chat GPT, Grok, whatever, those ones that are out there, Gemini.
Yeah.
There are prompts that you can find and you can type those in and create an avatar for your ideal customer, whether that be first-time home buyers, first-time sellers, investors, whatever. And that can create a list of questions for you to answer. And then you can get more defined in those avatars. And then that could also be used to help you create marketing. Or you can get a content schedule out of that.
Yeah. 1,000. And one other thing, Ian, is with the avatar, if you go to YouTube or you go to Instagram and go on the back end and look at the analytics and who the demographics are that are watching, that'll give you an idea too of who you are marketing to and who your avatar needs to be.
Got it. That's a good little tip.
Yeah, who's paying attention to you, right?
Yes. All right. What is your database building / nurture strategy?
Say that once more.
What is your database building and nurturing strategy? Because I know there's a lot of ways with, especially like the KB4 that we have through EXP, or if you have a different one, like it's not called Chime anymore. What is it's that other CRM? But there are different things that you can create and you can set up that are just little drip campaigns and all these other sorts of things. And I feel like if you have something structured and put together, that can help just build the consistency and stay top of mind. Is there things like that you have implemented in your business?
Yeah, 1,000%. You have to. So I use two different CRMs. My main CRM, I use Follow Up Boss. It's user friendly. It's great if you have a team to communicate with each other on the back end. But the database is everything. So look, to give you a simple synopsis for the career of your real estate, for your career in real estate as to what your job is actually to build your database. Because as I prospect, anybody that I talk to, sometimes I'll go door knocking in a neighborhood. Everybody I talk to, everybody that I have a conversation with, they go into my database and then I nurture them. The reason that's so important is because if you build a database correctly, that database will pay you back over time. And so just to give you an example, I'd say for the first, I learned here, I'll be a little more specific. In 2012, I learned how to prospect. In 2012, I probably sold less than 10 transactions. In 2013, I did over 100. Why? Because I wasn't scared to pick up the phone and I wasn't even very skilled in communication. I wasn't a prolific prospector, et cetera, but I wasn't scared to pick up the phone. I would just ask for the business. And back then, we were coming out of a down market. People still wanted to sell. So I didn't need to be as skillful and it was a little bit easier. But that's how vital prospecting is to your business, is you have to build your database. And if you don't have a bunch of people calling you, guess what? You got to call them. So I would say from 2012, 2013, all the way to 2018, probably 70 to 80% of my business was from prospecting. And we're talking over 100 transactions every year. It wasn't until COVID hit that I started seeing a huge return in my database paying me back. So I would say from 2020, 2021, 2022, and this year too, probably 70% of my business has been my database paying me back, all the referrals, past clients coming back, et cetera. That's huge. So I almost did a 180 from sourcing my business from canceled expireds, for sale by owners, et cetera, to 2020 to 2024, where 70 to 80% of that was coming back as past clients or referrals from past clients.
And that all comes from the nurturing, the staying in contact, providing great value, and these people who took a chance on you from being a prospecting call to now lifetime clients.
1,000%. And I'll give you just some other examples. So I had a client, I mean, this has happened a lot, but just as an example, I had one of my clients who we became good friends with call me in June, and he's like, hey, can you show us this house? Sure. Can you show us tomorrow? Sure. Where it turned out to be a $5 million house. And then I showed them that afterwards. They're like, hey, they live 10 minutes away. Hey, can you look at our house? So within a month, they paid cash for that $5 million house. We sold their $1.5 million house. So that's $6.5 million from one client. And I didn't do a ton of work. You know, frankly, it's not like I did a lot of work to acquire the business like I typically do. I didn't have to show them. I showed them one property, right? One that they wanted to see. I didn't have to go searching for them. But the reason they came back to me because of the trust. So our job, whether we're on the phone or whether we're in a listing presentation, or if we're working with buyers, our job is to provide great service. And at the end of great service, we naturally earn a commission. Your job is not to focus on a commission. Your job is to service the client, provide great service to them, give them the service that they deserve, and everything else naturally flows and follows. Buyer comes along if it's a listing, everything happens naturally, but you have to provide great service, because if you don't provide great service, things will fall apart. The sellers or buyers you're working with aren't going to be too happy with you. They're probably not going to refer you somebody down the road. So I think I've been fortunate to realize that all I need to do is focus on great service and everything else follows naturally.
Thanks.
Really good tip for anybody watching. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, as a newer realtor, I've been reading all sorts of self-help entrepreneurial books, all sorts of different things. Before I even got into real estate, my aunt was mailing them to me as Christmas presents every year from like 21 up till, 28, 29, 30 years old. And one book that I got was Gary Keller, The One Thing. And I wanted to ask you, what is your one thing that contributes to 80% of your business?
Yeah. That's a great question. And then it's also an incredible book. I love that book. And it's the truth. So in real estate, I'll be specific to, as I mentioned, so my job in my team is really just the acquisition of clients. That's why I can spend so much time prospecting. And frankly, if it wasn't for prospecting, I really wouldn't have a job, because my team is set up where everything else is handled. I really don't have to focus on paperwork. I don't even have to put together a listing agreement. There's very few things that I need to do. However, other than prospect, but I intentionally set it up like that and delegated everything else so I could stay focused on prospecting. Why? Because prospecting is the one thing. My job every day is to take at least one new listing, or I should say set 2 qualified listing appointments, 2 qualified sellable listing appointments, not ones where they're overpriced or anything like that, because you don't have any credibility with things like that. But that's the one thing. And as I've conducted my business, focusing solely on the acquisition of clients and helping people, and then delegating as much as I can out of my realm so that I could stay focused and sharp and have almost tunnel vision on what I need to do. That's when things are going to accelerate really fast. A lot of people have a hard time hiring an assistant because of the cost, or to add a team member because they think that they're going to give away half their business. But in doing these things, whatever you delegate, so you have more time, you have to focus on that higher value dollar per dollar activity. And if you're not doing that, if you're delegating something so you have more free time to do what you want, that's not going to help you grow the business. you're letting go of something to add something more valuable, right? And for those who have a fear of hiring an assistant, there's also the opportunity costs. That's something incredibly important you have to think about. What am I losing by not hiring the assistant rather than gaining, let's just say you're going to pay them 50 grand a year. If I could hold on to that $50,000 a year. Now I'm working more than I want to. I'm not being focused. And I'm not focused on my one thing because now I'm doing things I could have delegated. Whereas if I focus on that one thing, which is the acquisition of clients, I have less stress because someone's taking care of, let's just say, listings management and transaction management. And that opportunity cost is dramatic because think about this. If I pay somebody $50,000 a year to handle things that probably aren't a super high priority for me, but other people can do it and maybe do a better job, who knows? And I do 20 more deals a year by levying my time. Well, my average commission is about, we'll just say 10,000. And 20 more deals at 10,000, that's $200,000 a year. Whereas and that's by paying somebody 50,000. So the opportunity cost by not hiring somebody is 200,000. So that's really important, is to look at the opportunity costs.
Got it. So this next question kind of comes from me actually getting to come into your office and explore a little bit of these prospecting classes that you host, and getting to understand you as a businessman on a higher level. You gave me this tip once called the 3190. This may be a little bit more high level than just some entry level agents coming into this, but anybody that has the right mindset can start incorporating this into their business now. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that 3190?
Yeah, absolutely. And it could be a 5190. So the 3 years is your 3-year vision, right? You have to have a vision down the road. You have to have a target that's bigger than what you're thinking now, because typically our expectations are limited by what we believe we can do, right? And as an example, I remember when I first went to Jamison Sotheby's in 2012, we did the beginning of 2012, they did the 2011 sales awards for the company. And the number one agent at the time did 30 million in sales. I hadn't done that. And I was wowed. I remember I went home and I was talking to my wife and I'm like, Christina, this woman did 30 million. I'm like, that means that 2% commission times 30 million. That means that she brought home probably over $600,000. I'm like, can you believe that? So that was my limitation. And then once I got into a big coaching program and I was introduced to people that were doing 400 million. Well, now my mind's expanded. And so the thought of 30 million was like, oh, that's nothing. Right. And then shortly after that, I'm doing 50 million. So you're limited by how expansive your mindset is. And so you have to think beyond your current thoughts of your 3-year vision. What do you want to do in 3 years, right? It has to be somewhat realistic, but right now outside of your current scope of achievement, because you need to stretch your mindset. And so your 3-year vision, your 1-year plan, and then your 90 days of execution, because everything we do in our real estate world is on a 90-day cycle, just like other businesses, quarterly cycle. But the reason it's more specific for our industry, because we're 100% commission. We don't list a property and it closes tomorrow, right? List a property today, it closes tomorrow. That doesn't happen. And so it typically takes, we'll just say 90-day cycles for things to come to fruition. So everything that I do today is rewarded 90 days from now, right? And so it's a perfect example for anybody who's watching. If you want to have a great beginning for 2025, everything you do today up to that point is going to determine how well your beginning of 2025 is going to look. If you're not working your tail off now, and if you're not planting the seeds, whether it's with your past clients or marketing or your prospecting, if you're not setting things up and if you're not working your tail off now, you may not have a good start in 2025. So it's your
Yeah,
3-year vision, your 1-year plan, and then your 90 days of execution.
great. All right. And then just as we were talking about some books there. What are your 3 books that helped you fundamentally change your mindset for real estate?
Oh, I love books. Everything you want in life can be found in a book. So, you know what? I would say the Tim Grover books, Relentless, and he wrote a book called Winning. I like those books because my experience when I read them is I get a little bit, I get kind of angry, maybe a little aggressive. One of the things that Tim Grover says is that we all have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And so his objective when he was training his elite clients was to pull the Mr. Hyde out of them. Or was it Dr. Jekyll, whatever, the evil little guy, right? Pull the dark Sohail, like the dark Spider-Man, pull that out, because that's the killer instinct that you kind of need to be able to push through difficult times, to be able to push through working with difficult clients, et cetera, or to do the things you don't want to do. Like, oh, I should be door knocking today, but I don't feel like it. And I read a book like that and I kind of get a little, I don't know, I don't want to say the word, I get pissed, but not pissed. I get pissed at myself, which in turn motivates me to go do something, to take action. So I don't know. I take action when I get a little upset with myself. So I don't know. I kind of like to make myself upset, I guess.
I
You
get it.
know,
As a
yeah, get
former
pissed
chef,
off.
I'm my own worst critic, and
Yes.
when I'm not hitting at a level of expectation that I set for myself, I'm ultimately the hardest person on myself. So
Yeah. Patrick Bet David wrote another book that I read recently. It's called Choose Your Enemy Wisely, right? And the reason I like that book is because I definitely pick people. I pick enemies because I need something to get competitive with, right? So maybe maybe I lost a listen to somebody, but I'll focus 100% in making sure I don't lose a listening to that person ever again. So I get pissed. I turn that piss into motivation. I turn that motivation into the ability to execute. And I do whatever I can to make sure those things don't happen again. So Relentless, Winning, Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And then from a business perspective, there's some really good big books written by Gino Wickman about EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. There's Rocket Fuel, there's Traction, there's Clockwork. I don't know, there's probably like 4 or 5 of them. I read them all. They're great books. And we run our business on something similar. In fact, that's where the 30, 60, 90 nomenclature comes from, is the ability to run your business on an ecosystem that gains you traction so that you're not spinning your wheels every year you're hitting the same numbers or you're regressing, hopefully not. But you should have, I think a healthy increase in business every year is about 15 to 20%.
got it. All right. And then, every coach, every a high level person in this industry is going to talk to their why. And, what is that most driving factor behind your success? And I put in quotations here, dig deep.
What'd you put in quotations?
Dig deep. A lot of people just get
Yeah.
in there and say, "Oh, it's my family. I'm having a kid soon, like myself in January." And they'll give a 1 or 2 word answer, and this is, really dig into like what makes that your why, and go deep on that end.
Yeah. Throughout my career, it's actually shifted my why. So when I first got into the business, I think I came out of a really dark place. My story, Ian, but I was, I was homeless at one time, right? So my why was to just get myself back in my feet, reset, and refocus, and get into something and give it all I got. So that was my first why. Then from there, it was more financial, meaning I wanted to have nice things. I wanted to have a nice house. I wanted to have a lot of money. But in doing so, I actually sacrificed one of the things that I learned that you can't sacrifice. And that was my family. I put my financial ambitions before my family ambitions. And that was for a long time. And that served me well, but it didn't serve me well with my family. So I knew I had to change things. I would say right in my 40s, maybe around 42 to 44 years old, I realized that I was working my life away. Right. I mean, I worked a lot. And at one point, I worked 7 days a week for 7 years straight when I ran my own company, just to give you an idea. But then I woke up and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm working my life away. I'm over the hill, or, to some extent, somewhat over the hill. I was hitting my 40s. And then my values changed. So then it wasn't really financial. It turned to more freedom. And if you ever read the book Buy Your Time Back, I think that's kind of how I started thinking, like, okay, well, I want to live my life a little bit. I want to spend time with my family. And I say this somewhat shamefully. My two oldest kids, I don't remember their childhood. I remember, points of their childhood and little memories of doing things with them. But even when I was with them, I don't think I was present because I was under so much stress with work and my business and dealing with employees and stuff like that. So my values have changed and my why has changed. Now my why is to be able to 10 years, I want to be able to retire. I want to make sure that I'm set up for that. I want my freedom. And now my why, it's not freedom from working. So I just want to be clear. I love to work. I thrive in this environment. I thrive when there's high stress and I'm on the hunt. I guess you can call me a hunter. That's why I go so well with prospecting. And I thrive in that environment. But what I'm trying, and I'm saying that because I want to be clear what I mean. I don't want freedom where I just do what I want. I want freedom so that I can choose to do what I want. If I want to live in a different state, I'm not tied down by location. If I want to jump on a plane and go somewhere this weekend, I'm not tied down by any restraints from traveling. If I want to buy something, I don't want to be tied down saying, no, I can't afford that. So now that's how my why, and same with of course, that goes with my family. I don't want to put limitation on my kids, but at the same time, I want them to earn it. I'm not a believer in giving them anything. I want them to earn whatever they want, but I'll help them to earn it, and my wife is incredible. So like for her, I want her to be able to do what she wants. And that's my why now. So I think it changes as we get older. And I'm sure 10 years from now, my why is probably going to be different as well. But you have to find out, and you do have to dig deep. So I'm happy you said that, Ian, because you have to find out why you're doing something to the point where it's not like, oh, you want a new car. The why has to be a little bit long-term and deep, meaning it has to pull all your emotions into it. So when you don't feel like knocking on a door because you're worried that the people are going to get mad, it doesn't affect you because your why has to be bigger than any negative thought in your head. That's probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah. And as we grow in this business, as things keep going, everyone's going to evolve. Their why is going to evolve. And that's because at any point you're going to be achieving more and more and more. So necessarily your 3-year-old why is not going to be the same thing 3 years from now. And a lot of that goes hand in hand with me too. I had come to Jesus moment, as you can say, when I was leaving the restaurant industry. Executive chef, Michelin restaurants, working 100 hours a week, 7 days a week for multiple years straight. I don't shy away from work. I was there because the job had to get done, and I was the only one doing it. But now I value my time and my relationships more than I value that dedication to the someone else's goal, which was somebody else's business, somebody else's restaurant, which is that realization I had where when I was leaving the industry, I was like, I just don't think I can work for somebody else ever again. And now I need to figure out, am I going to go start a catering business, or am I going to follow up with my aunt and see what this whole real estate thing's all about? And I think the real estate thing has been the best decision I've made in my life. I've enjoyed every bit of learning that I had through this, getting to meet cool people like yourself. I've learned so much from you in just the last year alone, knowing you, and I'm very grateful to have made this, transition in my life. For those newer agents that are going to be watching this video and tagging along with us, what is one piece of advice you wish your younger agent self would have gotten in the first 1 or 2 years of your business?
Great question. I do want to say that you and I have had the good fortune to become good friends, and we both know our background and where we came from. And yeah, the stories that you told me about being a chef and the amount of work you put into it, et cetera. I love that. Good for you. I think it's great. It actually inspires me. I'm sorry, just say that question one more time, because I'm just.
What is one piece of advice you wish you
Yes.
could give your younger agent self in the first 1 to 2 years of your business?
So I think I've been fortunate because I came from, I fell in love with bodybuilding when I was in high school. And I took it very seriously to the point where I ate very strict. I stopped going out to the house parties. In fact, I completely steered away from alcohol or anything. I ate a super strict diet because I wanted to become a professional bodybuilder. I went to sleep at 10 p.m. I woke up at 6 a.m. I mean, I was so regimented because I wanted to become a professional bodybuilder. And what I gained out of that, I didn't become a professional bodybuilder. But what I gained out of that, and this is what I would advise to anybody, is discipline. You're going to hear a lot about mindset, and you're going to hear a lot about other things. But if you don't have discipline, you have nothing. Because even if you have a good mindset, if you don't have discipline to take action on something, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how good looking you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have. If you don't have discipline, it doesn't matter. And it's discipline to make choices that are probably uncomfortable. It's discipline to execute on something that you may be super fearful of, right? Public speaking, knocking on a cold door, doing a cold call, putting a client in place, because we are the authority. So it's the discipline. And I will tell you that at the end of the day, discipline is going to be the most important aspect of most important characteristic that we can have is the discipline. And if you can become disciplined, you can do anything. Think about it. Like, I want to learn, let's just say I want to learn a new skill. Discipline is what stops people from picking up a book and staying focused and reading it with intention so they retain the information, or going out with their friends, or watching Netflix instead. It's the discipline.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also know from my own challenges with this new industry and getting discipline, it's a muscle. You have to work on it. You have to build it. And, you're not going to be able to flip a switch and then you're disciplined. Like, you have to work these things on over time and do it one thing at a time. Wake up at 5 a.m., do that cold plunge, then add on another thing. After you get that under your belt for a couple of months, then add on another thing and add on another thing. They call that habit stacking. And those sorts of things are going to build the discipline that you need to continually add more structure and function to your business.
1,000%. And, think about this. I woke up at 2:45 a.m. for 10 years. It's not because who wants to wake up who wants to wake up in the middle of the night when their significant other is still sleeping and everybody's sleeping in their house, and you wake up, winter's coming. So imagine waking up in the cold at 3 a.m. It's dark out. But here's why I did it, because I knew that by doing that, I was gaining some type of skill and internal strength. I jump in a cold plunge at 4:45 a.m. and I'm talking cold. This thing's, like I said, 40 to 50 degrees, and I jump in naked. Can you imagine? Who wants to do that? Well, I do it because I know it's good for me. Who wants to, when I wake up, I do cardio. Who wants to do that? In a little bit here, once this ends, I'm going to go and do my weights. The things, and this is how this is how life works. The things that we want are typically not so good for us. It's the things that we steer away from. The healthy foods, the exercise, feeding our mind, feeding our spirit, making choices that are going to benefit us. So it's the things that typically we don't want to do are the things that are good for us. And so that's why it's difficult. And that's why there's a small handful of people that are high achievers, that know how to perform, et cetera. And it's not because we're smarter than anybody else. It's just because we're able to take action and discipline ourselves to make a specific decision and execute on it.
Exactly. Well, that's about all of our time for today. I want to say thank you so much for coming in on this top agent forum. You've been a great help and impact on my career. And I hope that all of this information that everybody else is going to get from this is going to continue to help people to reach out, explore a little bit more of what they can do. I know I'm going to be a regular at your prospecting first of the month classes, because it's just nuggets of information and finding like-minded people that want to grow in the same factor that you do with yourself. And I find that very, very selfless of you to, offer that out to people. And there's, no expectation in return, but we would be very grateful for everything that you brought for us today.
Well, thank you, man. I love you, brother. You know that. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm an open book. So anybody that wants to learn how to increase their business, et cetera, feel free to reach out to me, shoot me an email, sohail@sohailrealestate.com, and happy to help. And you know what the great thing is, Ian, for anybody that's watching this, there's no real secrets, right? The information's out there. You can go to YouTube and find out whatever you want. You can read a book. What I found is that people just won't do it.
Yeah.
Why won't they do it? It's
because it's hard.
Yeah, because it's hard. Yeah, exactly. So thank you for having me on. Really appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you too. Thank you.